You've been doing the COMEAP stuff for the last 10 years, because that's about as long as GAP's been working on air pollution as well. It's been interesting to see how some things have changed and some things haven't. So we've seen, because we do the regular tracking of public attitudes and behaviour around air pollution. And we know that levels of public concern are now much higher about air pollution, but we haven't seen the similar sort of shifts in levels of understanding about the health harms of air pollution, or what people can do to protect themselves from air pollution. And even those people who perhaps do know theoretically what can be done or what they can do to cut air pollution aren't actually doing it themselves. There's still quite a significant knowledge gap. And then even when you have the knowledge, a knowledge action gap.
Well, I certainly agree with you that public awareness has improved, and that's really gratifying to see. Partly because of the great work organisations like GAP have been doing, but also we've had very good support from a number of the journalists and media. Various newspapers have ran campaigns which have, I think, been very useful. But the problem that we all face in this area is that we're usually dealing with something that's invisible. And if it's invisible, that means you don't think about it. And the other point is that, yes, because of our actions, including my own, we all contribute to the problem in some way or the other through our daily lives. And the bottom line is we're all very busy. And we're used to the way we live our lives these days. And it's actually very difficult to change what you do without a full understanding of why you need to do it. So personally speaking, I walk a lot, I cycle a lot, I take public transport, I don't drive a lot, but that's because I know the consequences of driving, especially for short journeys. But most people don't really understand that because they can't see the problem associated with transport emissions, etc. They aren't really motivated to make that big change, which we all need to make.
Yeah, and the information just isn't really out there. And there's a sort of very common perception that if you don't live in London and you don't have asthma, air pollution is not a problem. And clearly we know that it is, because the vast majority of the UK is now sort of in an area that's above World Health Organization limits for air pollution. And we also know that air pollution goes from your lungs into your bloodstream, can go all around the body and affect pretty much every organ. So it's linked to things not just asthma, but strokes, high blood pressure, dementia, cancer, things that are very familiar to everybody's lives, but people just aren't yet making that connection to air pollution. And I think if they did, then we'd probably see a bit more political action on this as well, because I think you need that sort of public mandate. We need to create that political space so that policymakers will then respond accordingly. Because while for you and I, we work in London, so it is easy to walk and cycle. For many people around the country, it's not. And while we can encourage people to do that, if it's not safe and easy to walk and cycle, you're just not going to. So we really do need to see that sort of systemic change to enable the grassroots and individual change to happen on a daily basis.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it can be very dangerous cycling on certain roads in the city, and you wouldn't recommend that, to people who weren't expert cyclists at all, and that's why we need to help through local and national government action. Now, what has happened over the last decade is that there's no denying anymore that the quality of the air that you breathe is really, really important for your long-term health. It used to be that we thought it was just if you had an existing condition as asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease that you would feel the effects of air pollution. But in fact, as you say, the effects they're chronic, they're long-term, and they're associated with every illness which we now know the human race experiences. And that's an interesting fact. I don't know if you know this, but every day, if we take how much air versus how much water or fluid and how much food that we are required to stay alive, we need 22 kilograms of air. We need about 2 kilograms of fluid, and we need about 2 kilograms of food. So we take in vastly more air than food or water. So the air only needs to be, contaminated to a small amount, but we'll be taking large amounts of that small amount of material into our bodies every day. And over a lifetime, that's a lot of pollution. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody that, if it's bad that air quality that you have, that you're breathing on a day-to-day basis, that over time, it's going to contribute to poor health.